120 seconds. 110 seconds. 100 seconds. 90 seconds. 80 seconds. 70 seconds. 60 seconds. 50 seconds. 40 seconds. 30 seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds.
'My name's McCauley.
I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
All right, my friends, once again, it is indeed time to get our talk on. It's Morning Talk with me, your host, McCauley, along with the champions of talk. This morning's talk champion is none other than the one and only Jonathan Small. Morning, Jonathan. How are you?
Doing fine, Stan. It's a pleasure to be back here this morning on President's Day. Wish you a happy President's Day.
Happy President's Day to you, too.
You know, a little confusion because I thought last week they had one President's holiday. I know they combined them both together, but I know there was a holiday technically, I believe, last Monday. So now they have them both combined as the new President's Day. So how was your weekend?
My weekend was good. It was good. I won't say it was a short weekend. It's just as long as they usually are. But my kids are off all week, so the weekend's going to be a real long weekend.
Winter vacation they have?
I don't know. They're just home. That's all.
They're just home.
They're home. My daughter told me that she refused to do anything except relax. She told me her mother was going to control her week.
I thought kids like to play. I didn't know kids want to relax. I thought kids want to be outside. Well, the weather's nice. I mean, I took a walk yesterday in Elizabeth Park. People was out walking in droves,
It's good exercise. It's beautiful, beautiful weather, and people got cabin fever. They want to get out, especially after 60-degree winter days. Nothing like that to help you out.
I think we're having like a spring, winter in New England, and the South is having like a summer, winter. If I'm making any sense.
Yeah.
Spring is coming early. Summer is coming early.
It's colder in New England. Well, nonetheless, we're not going to sit here and talk about the weather. We have much more important things to talk about.
Exactly.
So, of course, every Monday we have people join us from around the world, and sometimes right here in Hartford, locally. But everybody who always comes here on a Monday is like at the top of their game. They are the experts. The top dog, as they say, on any subject that we talk about. So rather than us sit around and talk about stuff that we think we know, we always try to get somebody that actually knows what it is they're talking about. So, Mr. Small, you have the floor, sir.
Okay, to people out there this morning on Morning Talk Live with Jay Stan McCauley Talk Show, we actually have a returning guest who's been on both All About You and Face to Face in the 2010s. And even a year or two ago, I believe he was on Morning Talk Live with Jay Stan McCauley Talk Show. This guest has a tremendous background as a former state legislator in the state of Connecticut. He basically is chairing a major agency in the greater Hartford regional area. The guest this morning on Morning Talk Live with Jay Stan McCauley Talk Show is no other than the chairman of the Metropolitan District Commission, headquartered in Hartford, Connecticut, no other than William DiBella. Good morning, William. How are you doing?
Morning, Jonathan. I'm fine.
Okay.
Happy to be here with you and Stan. It's always informative. Informative.
Right. Well, Bill, for people out there who I guess don't know you, but usually we ask the guests every single week, briefly explain a little bit about yourself and background before we get into our main topic of discussion.
I was educated in Hartford. I've lived in Hartford my whole life. I served 9 years on the Hartford City Council. I was deputy mayor in the city of Hartford. I served in the state legislature for almost 20 years. I was in the House for a very short period of time, about 3 weeks. 4 weeks. Unfortunately, Governor Grasso passed away. The senator in the first senatorial district was Senator Joseph Feliso. He became lieutenant governor, and I ran for his seat 3 weeks after I was in the state legislature, and took that seat for almost 20 years. I was chairman of several of the committees in the legislature. Biggest one was Finance Committee, and for 6 years. And then I was majority leader for 2 years in 2 terms in the state senate, and have been on the Metropolitan District in one fashion or another for about 45 years, 46 years. So I've been there for quite a while. And that's my legislative background.
Well, Bill, your current position as the chairman of the Metropolitan District Commission consists of exactly what?
Well, I'm chairman of a 29-member board. The board is represented by appointments from the city council and town council in each of the 8-member towns. In other words, each town has so many appointments. 9 of those are appointed. 16 are appointed by the towns. Each town has appointments. 9 of those are appointed by the governor of the state of Connecticut, and 4 of them are appointed by the General Assembly. 1 from the Speaker, 1 from the President Pro Tem, and 1 from each one of the minority leaders in the House and Senate. So it's a bipartisan appointment of the legislators, 2 from the Democrats, 2 for the Republicans. That's a 29-member board. they elect a chairman every 2 years. I've been elected chairman for several years. And there's 29, as I say, 29 members. And then there's also 4 members that represent towns that we service with water, but are not serviced with sewer. And they buy water from the MDC. They have an appointed person, and that's Farmington. It's Farmington. Is it 4 or 3? It's Farmington. It's South Windsor, a very small portion, about a third of South Windsor. It's I'm missing one of them. But those are towns. Oh, I'm sorry, Glastonbury. Glastonbury, we also sell water to. And again, they don't have a vote. They have a board member on issues that can discuss those issues.
Well, Bill, obviously MDC, which is his title, nickname.
And let me just clarify one other thing.
What's that?
None of those commissioners receive any salary, any benefits, any gas mileage, or anything else. They're just they're civic appointed commissioners. The chairman, myself, receives no reimbursements at all either. So it's truly a citizen membership that serves without any reimbursements.
Okay, that's been clarified. Bill, obviously over the past couple of weeks in particular, there's been a lot of issues related towards residents, some small business owners in Hartford having issues with sewage backups, floodings. This is nothing new. It's been happening on and off for many different years. But it seems like it's coming to a boiling point when you get the EPA involved. You had a meeting twice, I believe, over the last month. And it seems like to me the finger is always pointed at the Metropolitan District Commission as the problem. Or if you're not the problem, you should be the ones resolving the problems that the residents are having with sewage backups and flooding. Why has MDC not stepped up and held their end of the responsibility if they are the ones who are responsible for these issues?
We aren't totally responsible for that. I mean, the bottom line issue, I think more significant, is a change in the environment. We have a system that is established. The standards of the system are established by the state, the city, and the federal government. That's relative to the design of sewage and stormwater. In Hartford, we have what you call a combined system. The system has one pipe, and it takes stormwater, and it also takes waste. About 12 years ago, the federal government came in, and that's when we created the Clean Water Project. And that Clean Water Project was basically to clean up the river and clean up Long Island Sound. It wasn't in its primary focus to resolve the issue that we have in Hartford with the storm sewers and the waste sewers combined. What we were doing, though, over a period of time, we were going to separate them. That meant create a storm sewer in the streets and a separate waste sewer. And that's what the Clean Water Project was. The Clean Water Project was a combined effort between the MDC and their ratepayers, the state of Connecticut, and through DEEP, and EPA, the federal government. We received federal money on that project. That federal money represents about 48% of what we've spent in the Clean Water Project. To date, we've spent $1.7 billion. This is not only Hartford. This was a federal mandate that was put on Bridgeport, New Haven, and Waterbury. If you take the combined effort that's been spent in New Haven and take New Haven and the other large cities, Waterbury, and it's been about somewhere around $70 million. We've spent $1.7 billion. That's a process where we separate the sewers in the street, and we have to put an additional sewer in for storm and one for sewer. So there's an additional sewer. That was done primarily. The standard that we have, the standard right now in the state of Connecticut, that the state requires and the federal government, is a 10-year storm. To be able to handle a 10-year storm. Every year we have seen more and more water falling, more and more storms, significantly more. And I believe it was August of 2021. In a period of 7 days, we had a 50-year storm, we had a 100-year storm, and a 200-year storm. That totally exceeded the capacity by a lot in terms of what our sewer system can take. And it's I've been there, like I say, probably 45 years on the district in some capacity or another, either a commissioner or a chairman of the finance committee over that period of time. And I've never seen that happen. Never saw a 100-year storm, never mind a 200-year storm. So what's happened with the change in environment, you're seeing significantly more rainfalls over shorter periods of time, but the system just can't handle it. 12 years ago, we started this Clean Water Project. And the Clean Water Project in Hartford has had its problems in the terms of being able to dig up streets and replace the pipes so that the stormwater would then go into a separate it would not go through the wastewater treatment facility in the South Meadows. It would go in because it's clean water. It's storm water that comes off the street. Has no sewage in it. Go into a separate pipe. That separate pipe has to go to what they call an outflow. That's to find a way to the river, and that system goes through in the north end, goes through the Park River conduit, goes into the Park River conduit, or into the Park River into the Park River conduit, across the city of Hartford, out into the river.
Well, excuse me, I understand there's a lot of definitions on how this whole clean water project, the new name now, another project is called the integrated. So whatever it was, it called the integrated, the second phase of this project?
You understand, MDC did not determine what the solution was. We were part of the solution, but the Department of Environmental and Energy and Environmental, DEEP, what DEEP is, the Environmental Authority in the state of Connecticut, they determined what the Clean Water Project would be.
Right.
And how it would be implemented, over what period of time it would be implemented, and how it would be funded with outside funds other than ratepayer funds. And that basically is what we embarked on back in 2008, 2009. And that was, like I told you, to separate the sewers in Hartford.
Well, Bill, I understand all of that part about the Clean Water Project, what the project is designed to do. But see, here's now where I think we're getting into some confusion or misinformation. Has this ever been explained to the residents, the business owners, exactly what they are responsible for if there's a flooding issue, if there's sewage issues? Because maybe the residents are just not aware exactly what their rights are, what their responsibilities consist of. So I'm just kind of wondering, what has MDC done, particularly to this lady Sharon Lewis, who has been out of her home in Hartford since December, staying at a hotel. I'm hearing some health issues with the mold backup. I don't have all the exact details, but I think a couple of people mentioned that they've been having some health issues. So saying all of that to say, Bill, how has MDC explained the exact responsibilities that the owners and the businesses have if there's a sewage issue or if there's a flooding issue?
Well, what the responsibility that every homeowner has is whatever happens on their property. They have a storm sewer system in their house, most of them in Hartford. The drains off of the roofs go into the storm sewer, goes into their system and out into the street. And it goes out into the street by virtue from the house itself, physically, to the sewer, which is in the street, is on private property.
Mm-hmm.
When it goes on private property, that's the responsibility of the homeowner to have a lateral pipe that comes out of their house and goes to the sewer, and then the sewer obviously takes that water away in the system that we own. We do not own the sewer system in the house or on private property. In the Clean Water Project, to separate that, the federal government has allowed us money and also the ability to go on to private property where we can replace the lateral when we put another sewer in that street, we put a storm sewer in. The storm sewer then gets hooked up to their lateral, what's in the street, but the lateral coming out of the house for the waste sewer, we replace that. And we also go in some places have to deal with the plumbing because they're older houses.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's part of the Clean Water Project, but we don't do that. We haven't been able to do it on every single street in the city of Hartford. Originally, it was a 12-year period of time they thought it could be done in. The big problem is when you start digging up streets, you start creating traffic problems. People's access to their homes gets impacted, and it creates a chaotic situation. About 10 years ago, I think it was, on Albany Avenue, when we started this program, we opened most of Albany Avenue up, and we had major problems. Primarily because probably somewhere in the area, I can't remember the exact number, but 40% of the public doesn't have capacity to park on their own property and park on the streets, which causes a dramatic chaotic situation in terms of being able to dig a street up with a trench and then be able to accommodate that parking. So the ability to do it on a piece of paper was one thing, but to do it in practicality was another issue, which created a slower system. And we're still doing that. We've done several of the neighborhoods in the city, and we're continuing to do it. We're moving into the Blue Hills neighborhood. And we will now have to find a location where we can take that stormwater that goes into the second sewer. And it has to, because it won't go in to the main sewer, which goes down into the plant and is treated because it has waste in it. This has stormwater, which is clean water. That stormwater system is being developed as part of this process, and that will then go from from the house to the storm sewer, off of the roofs to the storm sewer into the street, and then it has an outflow that has to go some way to get to the Connecticut River. In the north end, primary issues are Cully Brook, which would be the Albany Avenue neighborhoods, but primarily most of them go into the Park River conduit, and the conduit into the Connecticut River. What's caused major problems is that the Park River, which isn't owned by MDC, it's owned by the city of Hartford, over the years has become restricted and has to be dredged. It has to be opened up. And as a result of that, we're now in the process of doing a study that's going to determine how much and how we're going to open up the Park River conduit. And that's going to take us at least a year and cost about $1 million, of which the federal government has agreed to participate. The EPA and DEEP, they will pay 48% of that cost, 26% by MDC, and 26% by the city of Hartford. Remember, the river is owned by the city of Hartford. The second problem becomes, after they've established how it's going to be dredged and done, it's probably going to cost somewhere between $50 and $60 million to dredge that sewer or that river to get to the conduit to take off this water. That's going to be another issue. And what we're hoping now, because again, for stormwater, EPA is not willing to participate in the stormwater issue for those issues. However, because of the controversy that we've seen in Hartford with EPA finally coming here The chief administrator for the Northeast was here. Senator Blumenthal was here. Legislators were there. And the MDC was there, and of course the mayor of the city of Hartford was there.
And then when you say MDC, you mean Scott, the CEO of MDC, Scott Jellison, and then yourself
were there.
the
yeah.
chairman.
And several of the commissioners that live in the northern part of the city were there. Commissioner Lewis, you had Commissioner Taylor from Bloomfield was there, and several people. We had the people that had to be there. That was the first meeting we had. We didn't get the EPA.
They came to the second
EPA
meeting.
EPA finally came to the second meeting.
Right.
And they listened to the neighborhood, they listened to the people, and they also realized we got a system, remember, that is designed for a 10-year storm. We get a 100-year storm or a 50-year storm or a 200-year storm. No way it can accommodate it. And even a 20-year storm, a 25-year storm, they can't accommodate it. So as a result, we've seen the deep EPA are working together, the United States Senator, the other Congress people that deal in Hartford, Congressman Larson has gotten involved in this. And we hopefully, I say again, that EPA is going to permit us to use the clean water money also for stormwater, which would be a significant change in our ability to deal with it. But again, those are standards that are set not by MDC, nor by the city of Hartford. Basically, it's DEEP, the state. They are actually the representative of EPA in Connecticut. And EPA makes the final decision. So we're in that process right now.
Yeah, but Bill, I think one of the things that's really still targeting back to MDC is all of the pointing of the fingers of what should. I guess many people, some people really don't care who fixes the problem as long as the problem gets fixed. But the lawsuit of this Star Hardware owner Max Caterio suing the Metropolitan District Commission.
He is not. That's not suing us. He has not sued us.
He hasn't filed a lawsuit?
He has not filed a lawsuit against us. But again, he's suing. If he's going to sue, he's also suing the Housing Authority of the City of Hartford, the City of Hartford itself, and MDC. And again, it's a situation where the environments overcome the capacity of the city and the MDC to handle the water. And I'll discuss what some of the alternatives are in that if you want to when we get into them, because there's really 3 points, as I said before. You've got Albany Avenue, you've got North Main Street, and you've got the Park River and the Park River conduit, because that affects Westbrook Village,
the new
and
Westbrook
the expansion
Village,
in Westport Village.
Yeah, but
Westbrook
I think,
Village.
but see, Bill, at the meeting, I was not at the meeting, but I did watch the meeting, courtesy of J. Stan McCauley.
Okay.
The second video that was put, and I think I also caught parts of the first video too, but not the entire.
I don't think
meeting.
was there a stand? There wasn't a video, I don't think, on the first meeting.
Never
happened.
No.
No.
But they had segments.
First
It was
meeting
the
they
second
had.
meeting.
Yeah, the second meeting I did watch the entire, but there was also news segments on the first meeting that they did show Channel 30 and Fox 61 News. So no, they did not show the entire meeting.
Well, the first meeting was basically the fact that EPA didn't come, and it really wasn't a lengthy meeting like there was the second time when they came.
Well, that's fair enough, but I think
There was dialogue between community people and MDC and the city and the state that was there. EPA, I believe DEEP was there, or maybe they weren't. I think it was just the city, MDC, and EPA was supposed to be there. And if EPA was going to be there, DEEP would have been there.
Well, Mayor Luke Bronin of Hartford was not at the first meeting. He couldn't attend the first meeting.
But
Okay. Well, Stan, do you have a question? Any issues you want to address to Chairman William DiBella?
I have I'm listening, and it's insightful. I mean, I have I have a letter here that was sent to the MDC, but I'll get to that later because it's off subject relative to what you're talking about right now.
Okay.
The first meeting was not a meeting because the
happen.
people that were supposed to be at the meeting didn't come.
Didn't come.
I think the press was all there to cover the first meeting. So I think that's what you're referring to.
Yes.
Is the fact that people probably spoke to the press, but the meeting was the meeting that was recorded, which was 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago now, I guess.
I think it was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
2
That
weeks
was the
ago.
second meeting
that
where
was
everybody did show up.
Right. Everybody showed up, and there was substantive conversation and debate, and there was a listening session, really, for the EPA to listen and hear. And people spoke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We MDC did not participate in either one of the meetings. In
Right.
other words, we weren't a participant. The mayor, to a degree, did. I don't believe Deep was participating in the EPA. They were listening. They didn't
Right.
participate or talk about solutions or options or anything of that nature.
Right. Yeah.
Well, one thing that was stated, whether it was a meeting or not, I know Attorney Cynthia Jennings, who was also a guest on this program a few weeks ago, and many of the residents in certain areas where the storms and flooding has been affected by, they're saying that this is a class issue, that if this was in a different social economic class, like an affluent community, these problems would have been unresolved. So you don't think there's any issues related because of the area that this is taking place at?
I don't.
Okay.
No, I don't. I think the question becomes who has the authority to do it and who has the capacity financially to do it. Those are the two basic issues. And you've got the federal government, you've got the state government, you've got the city government, and you also have the regional government, which is the MDC. And all of those standards aren't set. We don't set the standard, nor does the city set the standard. It's the state of Connecticut and EPA that set the standards on what we're going to do because they provide most of the money. And we in the MDC are controlled by DEEP. They determine what we can do in that sewer system and how it's done. The Clean Water Project is basically the dictate of the Department of Environmental Protection. So we MDC and the City of Hartford participate in that process based on standards that are set, whether it's the standard for the sewer capacity, the stormwater capacity, or how it operates. As I said, one of the problems with the Clean Water Project was that the primary consideration was not backup in the homes and things of that nature, was the Connecticut River itself and what was going into the Connecticut River and ultimately into the Long Island Sound. Now, because of environmental changes that have been dramatic, I mean, I don't think anybody can debate or deny the fact that our environment in the last 10 years has changed, not slightly, but dramatically. When we're getting the number of rainstorms we're getting, that just overwhelming the existing system that we have. So let's go back and talk about 12 years ago on Albany Avenue, 14 years ago I think it was, when the streetscape was done there. MDC proposed to DEEP, to the City of Hartford, and to the Department of Transportation. Remember, Albany Avenue is a state highway. It's not a city highway. It's a state highway. We went to them and we said what would make sense from when we were talking about how we were going to separate that in the issue of the streetscape came into play was that was critical. And I'll tell you why. What we had proposed to the state, to the city, to DEEP, was that we put a 72-inch stormwater pipe in Albany Avenue, okay, and put in another 50 catch basins, because that's a deep sewer on Albany Avenue, and separate that pipe from the stormwater pipe, and then have the stormwater go into Gully Brook into the Connecticut River. And The city of Hartford rejected it. The Department of Transportation rejected it. It would have been paid for by a combination of MDC ratepayers, the city of Hartford, but the biggest portion of it would be paid by the person that owned the street, and that would have been DOT. And
well, hold on, excuse me. You just mentioned something about the ratepayers. So when a ratepayer is paying their water bill, they're also paying a sewage charge. What are they exactly getting? I know, obviously, if you're running the water, that makes sense to pay for a water bill. But this sewer charge that's added on to MDC
sewer charge
bills
gets paid out of the property tax. It's an ad valorem tax. In other words, water is a user charge. You use so much water, you pay for that water, and it's a user charge. What happens with the sewer is an ad valorem charge. That means it comes out of your property tax. When you pay your property tax, a portion of the property tax gets paid for your sewer. And that's based on the value of your property, the property values, whether it's Hartford, West Hartford, Wethersfield, because what they do is they take their grand list, the total cost of value of their grand list, they then divide that into the total of all grand lists, and that becomes the rate that you pay for your sewers. It's different in each community.
But there's no monthly sewer bill that MDC customers have to pay every single month?
No.
That's a sewer charge?
It's paid by the city to the MDC. There's two separate parts of the MDC. There's water and there's sewer. They're separate divisions. They're part of the same MDC organization. We raise money separately from them. They're, like I said, when you pay for your water, number of gallons of water you use is what you pay. When you pay for your sewer, it's based on an ad valorem. The value of your property tax, when you pay your property tax, there's a portion of that that gets paid to the MDC. So we get 8 payments from 8 different communities at different rates because of the value of their properties.
And again, the responsibilities that MDC has if there's a flooding issue in a customer home or there's some type of sewage buildup in somebody's basement is exactly what? I mean,
that's the responsibility of the person that owns the home. What we do, though, we backwater flow valves. MDC provides them at no cost to the homeowner. We put them in. We put them in. It becomes a responsibility because it's on private property for them to service that. In other words, clean it. There's a trap that you can open, and you clean it to make sure every 6 months or 8 months you look at it to make sure there isn't debris congregating on that. And again, in the last year, we spent just under $2 million of not MDC money, of ratepayers' money, to put in free backwater flow valves in those neighborhoods, in those areas where there's a problem. Hartford, it's in every neighborhood qualifies for it.
Well, you just said ratepayers, so they're basically paying for their own service. And if you're saying it's not MDC's money, it's the ratepayers that's paying for it.
No money is MDC's money for water or sewer. It goes from a ratepayer or from a municipality. And it's MDC is not a profit-making corporation. It's a public corporation that does not. It pays for its. As money comes in, it's paid out. It doesn't retain money in terms of like a corporation would to pay for their services, then pay for their stockholders. Our stockholders are the ratepayers.
So where does MDC get the money for their salaries? Then you're saying
they get it from the tax.
Okay,
taxpayer/customer. They don't have the MDC like the government doesn't have money. It's your money.
Okay.
It's so they have to be good stewards over the money they receive from everybody. So although people say free, this is staying not necessarily the truth. It's installed at the cost is offset by the ratepayer. It's not free. It costs something.
Right.
Well, in this case, it's offset. The water costs are offset. Water for drinking,
Right.
are offset by the users of the water, and the sewer side is offset by the taxpayer. In his when the taxpayer pays their taxes, a portion of that goes to pay the MDC.
Right.
Okay. Now the MDC again has got a responsibility and is a good steward to make sure they do that efficiently, effectively, and within hopefully the capacity of the taxpayer to pay it. On the top.
But the backflow valve or the backwater valve that's installed is offset by the ratepayers.
No, it's actually in this
Or
case
that's the tax.
it would be by the city's taxes.
Okay, so the taxpayers are paying
yeah.
for that.
But
now,
again, that's not the ratepayer doesn't taxpayer doesn't pay for that. The government pays for it.
right. So now my question about the backwater is the backwater valve or backflow valve?
Backflow valve they call it.
Okay.
What it does is it prevents. In other words, when the sewer gets inundated with water, water has to find some place to go. If you're in a basement and you have a basement fixture, you're on the same level as the sewer. Basements weren't made or weren't created to live in. They were created to be areas of storage or things of that night and catch problems that come into a basement. However, people started to live in it. You remember, you're living on the same level as a sewer pipe. Now, the first level, you very seldom see anybody get flooded out from a sewer backup, unless there's another problem. It's coming in off their sewer drains or their rain leaders that go down into that. So what happens is, in a storm where you would get additional water into the sewer line, it's going to go someplace. It's going to come back towards where it came from the home into the sewer. It'll come back. A backflow valve is placed at the property line or at the house. So it's a flap, and what happens is that flap goes down, and it blocks the sewer coming into the house. However, during a storm, you can't use your bathroom and things of that nature until that water dissipates, because the flap won't go up to let it out. So what maintains itself in the house is all the capacity that you have with the backwater flap.
Okay, so
what we do is we install those for people so that in a flood or in a big storm, that resolves the issue of preventing it from backflowing in. If you have basement facilities, if you don't have something in your basement, you're generally not going to, even if it came back in, it would flood your basement, but who wants sewage in their basement?
Right.
That's the protection. That's a public health issue.
So then how do people, because as I was listening to, it reminds me of the fire department with the smoke detectors. They'll come, maybe install a smoke detector. They do this every once in a while,
right?
Or remind you to check your batteries.
You have to do it too.
Right. But once they're in there, they're your responsibility.
Right.
But there's a public campaign to make people aware, so to prevent houses burning down. How do people find out that they even need a backwater valve or a backflow valve?
Generally, because of the severity and the number of storms that you have, if you're going to have flooding in your basement, you're going to know you have flooding in your basement. You've had it before,
right?
And for people who haven't, it doesn't matter, because the severity of storms have intensified dramatically. So now you're seeing more and more people who never had backup in their basement. All of a sudden, they're having backup in their basement. That's why we've gone from probably $50,000 or $60,000 or $80,000 a year to $2 million on backflow valves. Because now, when you get hit with a 100-year storm, there's no way. When you get hit with a 20-year storm, you're going to have a problem because of what the system's designed for a 10-year storm. And in most places in Hartford, a 1-year storm. So you know you're going to have a problem, and that's why we've definitely upped that. And now we're looking at saying, for people that are elderly, for people that don't, because when you get a backflow preventer put into your house, you sign a document that says that you will maintain it and that you will, on a periodic basis. Well, people get older. People have problems dealing with that, or people buy the house and understand they got an obligation for it, but just can't do it. We don't know, whatever the case is. We're asking deep that can we go into private property, and can we have some kind of an education program with them? If you have an elderly group of people and say, we can't do it, we don't understand it, we can't physically do it, that we go in and we do something to assist, allowing us to go on private property and taking money of that nature. Those are some of the things we're looking at right now. And, because of the severity of what's happening, we haven't had this kind of a problem. Not that we haven't had problems of flooding, whether it's a failure of the lateral from on private property, but it's becoming more and more and more significant, and it's happening more often. So those are the things we're looking at, and we're talking to DEEP and asking, can we use federal money to go in and do this? Can we run that program? And even the lateral program is the thing we're looking at now, because Miss Lewis, the problem she had, and you raised that question with us, and we've been very clear. We did go out to the property and explain to her what her problem was, but we said that we did not have the right to spend taxpayer or ratepayer, in this case taxpayers, money on private property to make improvements on private property, and that's just the way the rules are. We have to play by the rules that get established. And as a result, she got a plumber. She actually brought a plumber in, and the plumber did a terrible job. He didn't clear. She had an obstruction. We told her she had an obstruction in that sewer pipe. We went out, when they called us, we went out and explained to her, we, the MDC, could not replace the sewer lateral for her because it was her, she owned it. And we don't have that authority to spend taxpayers' money to go out and do that, except in the Clean Water Project, where they allow us to do it.
So now, because I'm just trying to figure out now, if there's an obstruction in the pipe, that means the water can't flow in or out. So if there's that's more of a question than it is a statement of fact, because I don't know.
I know the question. Keep going, though.
If the lateral is obstructed, how does anything get in to the house?
It wasn't what was getting in. It was coming off of her roof.
Oh, I see.
Okay, remember, your rain drains have to go someplace. Because of the density of the population that you have, you can't take it and pump it out onto your grass. A lot of people don't have any grass. And they have so much concrete and asphalt, it runs all over. Let me finish. So as a result, what was happening, she also had a broken cap that the plumber should have fixed inside, where when that water comes down, it was just coming down and into her basement. And what she was doing when she flushed the toilet or something, it couldn't get out onto the street. So it was a dilemma that she had. Had the situation been different, it would have still gone into the sewer, going out. She couldn't get out, so everything was coming back that was going out in that sewer. It doesn't happen often, but it's happened 2 or 3 or 4 times, and we told her that, and she went out, and apparently the plumber never fixed the inside, nor did he fix the outside or the lateral. So I understand what happened. Then what happened was her basement was filled because of the enormous amount of rain we got over that period. The storm drains were coming down off of the roof, filling up her basement. Okay? And she called the fire department. The fire department will generally come out if you have flooding in your basement from outside, not from your sewer pipe. They won't touch the sewer pipe because it has feces in it. And as a result, apparently she called DEEP, and they came out and pumped it out. And now think about what it cost.
Mm-hmm.
They did it twice because she still didn't get it fixed on the after they pumped it out. Or she thought it was fixed, and it wasn't fixed because a plumber. She acknowledged that at the meeting. She paid him, I think, $2,500, and he didn't do what he was supposed to do. So the second time, it did it again.
And the problem wasn't resolved.
And Deep came out and pumped it out a second time. You know what it cost to pump that out? $35,000 per event. That's what it cost Deep. Because you don't just come out with a pump and put it in there. You got to have certain kind of hazmat equipment and things. We don't have that. MDC doesn't have that. So it was done either by must have been by a private contractor, because I don't think Deep does it either.
Okay, one last comment from a viewer. So then the MDC, in essence, what you're saying is the MDC has no responsibility for what residents are experiencing.
No, for that situation where you have a lateral that's obstructed, you've got to get a private contractor to come out and do that. Now, have we the Clean Water Act, have we been doing that street? What we do is the federal government allows us, EPA, DEEP allows us, when we do the separation in the street, that means we have to dig up one trench and put a stormwater pipe in there. We keep the existing waste pipe separate them out. And your suburban towns don't have that because they were built after the war, where they went out and built two systems, one for storm and one for waste. And that's the reason why the vast majority of it's being done in Hartford, because Hartford came prior to the suburbs and anybody else. The other problem is West Hartford has the same problem. They've got to separate it. They've got a system. And West Hartford, for 5 years, we went round and round with them on the fact that they thought it was an obligation of the Metropolitan District Commission. And what happened, we have failures out in West Hartford where we had done we put a sleeve in there. We line it rather than change the whole sewer. And what happened was there was a failure out in West Hartford, and people got the same basic problem. It backed up into their homes. Now, in that case, that was a failure of the sewer. If there's a failure of the sewer and it goes into your house, MDC's got the obligation to do that. In that case, in West Hartford, that sewer failed because the liner inside collapsed.
Oh, geez.
That meant everything backed up into everybody's house because it couldn't get out into the sewer. In that case, MDC was responsible for everything that happened in that house. It wasn't a storm where it was, it was a fault of the environment. This was a fault of a failure of the pipe, and it collapsed. And what we did, MDC paid for that, and then we sued the person that put in the liner, and we were reimbursed from the people with the liner. So the people got the solution was now, in the event that if they have homeowners coverage, then that would have been paid by the homeowner, not by the MDC.
Okay.
So, Bill, there's never been a failure of any sewer problem issues in Hartford. All of these problems.
Oh no, we've had that, and it's a failure of a sewer. If it's on our problem that our sewer collapsed and you couldn't get out there and it went back into your house, then we have paid. Yeah.
But I mean, these current issues that many of these homeowners and small business owners are dealing with, there's no sewage issues or no sewage failures that they can say.
There's no failure in the pipe in the street. That's what we own. The MDC owns the pipe. When it comes across your sidewalk, it now is on public, and then it goes into a sewer. If that sewer fails, then that's MDC's obligation to go in, and we have to fix everything inside the house that happens. That's a failure of a sewer. The failure of a lateral that is clogged. Trees, woman, Miss Lewis, on her situation. Apparently, what happens is tree roots will grow through a sewer, and over a period of time, that's what happened. So when we got out there, we did a rotting to see what the problem was, and it sure enough, about 2/3 of the way out, it had roots and everything else in it, and we told her she had to get a plumber to dig that up and do it, and that's what happened. So again, what we're saying to DEEP, there are times when we should be able to use federal money to go in on bases like that and resolve some of those problems. And if it means, listen, we have a project right now. People can't afford to pay for their lateral. What we do is we'll go out and we'll have someone do a new lateral, but you have to go through a process, and then we'll lien the house. So whoever sells the house, you either pay for it now or you pay for it when you sell the house. And that makes some sense. But in the case, we will want to go in and look at people's houses inside now and start saying, hey, this makes some sense, and you've got to do this, and this. But, it's a question of authority. It's a question of resources. And it's interesting because what we've done in this country, and I've been there long enough to be able to tell you this. In 1970, I went on the board in 1975. I took John Bailey's place when he died. He was a Democratic National Chairman. I was also on the city council. I think I was 35 or something, 34. And I went on the board. That was in 1975. In 1977, the federal government changed their policy towards sewer work and whose responsibility it was. Up until that time, the federal government financed sewer work the same way they did highway work. It was 20% for the local state and 80% for the federal government. They got totally out of the sewer business, and they eliminated that funding. So in 1978, we were on our own, and the only thing we were getting was what we got out of either the state in some cases, not much, but primarily out of the rate for the sewers, and it was nowhere near enough. You were getting nothing from it. It went from 80% to 0. Now the federal government did step in some like clean water projects as they got closer to the 1990s and the 2000s. They realized they had to do something, and that's why we get the 48% subsidy now on the clean water project. Then we changed the clean water project because what had happened was the environmental community wanted this situation resolved in 12 years. It was an impossibility to do it in 12 years. To separate the city of Hartford in 12 years, dig a ditch in every street. We learned something when we told the state government this. We just don't have the ability with people parking on the streets, trying to get into their driveways. You can't open up a total street. You got to open up smaller sections to allow people around it. And we explained that to them, and ultimately now they're starting to realize that we can't separate a sewer and take a whole street out. Where do the people go? That's what happened in Albany Avenue.
Well,
now, go ahead.
Yeah, well, let me ask you another question about, first of all, what is the current relations between DEEP, MDC, and Hartford as number one? Are y'all working together better now since the meeting, or anything has changed?
I'll be truthful. A year ago, we had the same issue happen a year and a year before that. We had the same problem, and DEEP didn't show up. They just weren't going to come out. And EPA, DEEP did. They came out and, but we never had a coordinated effort where we had this. We still have a problem with the city. And here's the big problem. The city can't afford to do $50 or $60 million to dredge the Park River. So we go to DEEP and we said, well, we still need the Park River and the conduit to dump the new sewers we're building, the outflow for the clean water. how are we going to do it? The city of Hartford can't pay $50 million. The MDC isn't going to pay $50 million. That's when this whole meeting has come together, and everybody now is realizing the environment.
Mm-hmm.
The environment has changed dramatically. In 10 years, it's changed. I mean, we never had these types of storms. Did we have the fires in California, the floods in the South Central? The whole country's changed. And now they're going to deal with it. And DEEP is now looking with EPA. They've gone to EPA. EPA, that was a really great meeting because we never had all the people in the same room. The United States Senator, and Blumenthal is at EPA's door in Washington, and Murphy and the delegation is saying, guys, you have to change our ways here. Ultimately now, we are dealing with DEEP, and DEEP is with EPA, and I think, hopefully, I believe that they're going to allow us to do these things now and do the Clean Water Project and get a 48%. Now, if that'll have a big impact on because the mayor said to us, and he doesn't have the ability to come up with $50 or $60 million to dredge that river. If we could go in like we're doing it now and let the feds pay their 48%, let the city pay their 26%, and let MDC pay their 26%. Now, the city is probably going to need some help in the MDC from the legislature. And the legislature, the Speaker of the House, the President Pro Tem of the Senate, Ritter is the Speaker, and Senator Looney as the President Pro Tem are saying the same thing. It's going to happen. It's happening in New Haven. He's from New Haven. Matt Ritter's from Hartford. And they're saying, show us a plan, and we will deal with the plan, and we'll contribute to it, too. So that's a very positive environment now. We've got EPA saying, yeah, we think we've got to do something about it. Yes, we have to do something about it. The state, it's a coordinated effort now. We never had this kind of cooperation before.
Okay, well that's one of that is a question that one of the viewers has was when are all the agencies going to sit at a table together so that the blame game can stop? But as I think you pretty much answered that.
Yeah.
Just with this.
But we're going to go a step further than that right now. We're now meeting with the NRZs. We're going to have meetings with the NRZs. We're going to talk about the programs that we have to do and we should have done. We're going to have to do these and get money from the state and the federal government and from our ratepayers to go out and start looking at these issues where backwater flow valves aren't being put in where they should be put in, and where they've been put in, are they being maintained properly? And also that we work out some kind of a program where we can go out when people can't afford to do it or it's not being done correctly. We can monitor that and make sure that it's done properly and that it can be paid for. Those are the things that we have to do now. And for my time there and what we've been doing, I can see right now this has been is the way to go to move this together. So you will see MDC. We've been pushing DEEP and EPA. If they do give us that right, and the other issue is the whole question was raised about minority participation in the construction of it.
Well,
one of the reasons we haven't been able to, we've gone to DEEP and EPA. They've rejected it, and they've rejected it based on the fact that they want the longer construction, which we've told them you can't open major streets up, and you can't do it. By reducing the size of that construction project and biting off smaller pieces, you'll be able to get more minority contractors. Now, we have a strong minority program on trucking and things like that they take off. We have several minority contractors have developed trucking companies and are participating, both minority women and minority people in general. We have an affirmative action program. We have all that. It's been approved by the state, not by us. It's by CHRO.
Mm-hmm.
And we are the only municipal agency in the state of Connecticut that is regulated by CHRO. And we have never been turned down on our affirmative action programs or anything else in the last 13 years that I think it's 12 years we've been under their authority. So MDC is working in that direction. And we become the voice as well as the city. We are together with the city on this process. That's why the Park River conduit is going to be significant, because that's servicing the Westbrook Housing Authority, the expansion of Westbrook Village, and all the separation now in Blue Hills, that we're going to go into that. What's happening now, where we've done it in the Albany Avenue area, we have a 60-inch and a 72-inch, I believe, that's going into the Park River. And the frustration of us, MDC, and the neighborhood and the city is we've separated several of the streets up there. They're still backing up for one reason. When that stormwater goes out into the Park River, the Park River needs to be dredged. That means it's higher, so the water goes in, and it can't be taken by the river, and it goes right back up that stormwater thing. So Park River becomes significant. Gully Brook becomes significant. The question that was raised by Jonathan, North Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
North Main Street was caused when the housing authority was changed. The housing project up there was changed. You remember it used to be a high-rise, then they took it down. And
Stowe Village.
Stowe Village was spread out. Beautiful situation. They got single-family homes up there. The problem is it's much more land that they had.
Mm-hmm.
So when the water falls on it, it's got to go someplace. If it can't get into a storm sewer, it goes someplace else. So the housing authority had to get into our pipe on Main Street, North Main Street, okay? And unfortunately, that's a separated. That's not a separated sewer. That's a combined sewer. We didn't have enough capacity in there, so we took a 7-inch pipe. The housing authority went into what they call a retention pond. They had a retention facility there. The problem is North Main Street drops there about 22 feet from where Stowe Village was down. And we can only take a 7-inch pipe into what we had that existed there. Otherwise, it would be in everybody's house. You remember, you can only put so much water in a pipe in a store. So what happened was the retention pond down there wasn't big enough that the housing authority built.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes over the back, goes down onto the Star Hardware's property. Now we got to resolve that issue, okay? And the only way to resolve it, we're going to have to put there's got to be a stormwater pipe put in that goes up North Main Street and goes into where it's into the Connecticut River around the dike, just right over the line there.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've been working with them to do this. We're asking DEEP, can we change the schedule on the integrated plan, because it's changed? Can we move that up and put that pipe in now and resolve that issue, and with the city and the MDC resolve that being done? And hopefully they'll let us do that. We can resolve that, because they've got a $40 million project that they want to build up there. It's going to be a shopping center with a big grocery store, a large grocery store. I don't remember who's doing it, but it's going to be a massive grocery store, which the neighborhood needs.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is, as it stands now, they would be required to have this enormous tank in the ground to take the overflow of what's going to be, because there's not enough room in that pipe. So if we can get all that put together, the mayor's been working on it, we've been working on it with them. If we can expedite that, we can open it up. There's a $40 million project that could operate, because it's going to have a major problem on our whole economic development if we can't get this kind of relief around the city. And that's to be able to get into Gully Brook, the Park River conduit. The state of Connecticut's also doing it when they renovated the state office building, and they put that big garage there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they went down 4 levels. That meant they're hitting water. So where do they put the water? In our sewer. And they shouldn't have. They should have taken on Capitol Avenue. They should have gone, and there was a proposal internally at the state to take and build a sewer down Capitol Avenue to Hudson, down Hudson to the base of Hudson, and right into the Park River conduit and into the river. Instead, they dumped it into our river, and we were charging them $68,000 a month to dump the water into our sewer. Okay, and he stopped paying us.
Stan, excuse me, before you read that letter, I just wanted to ask or say one thing. Hearing everything that you had expressed about what MDC is looking to do, how you're trying to work with EPA and DEEP.
In the city,
and
everybody's
the city of
trying to work
Hartford,
together, right.
I just wonder now if Attorney Cynthia Jennings, Bridget Prince, the community activist, Sharon Lewis, after hearing all of this, I don't know if they're watching this show or they're going to look at it, would they feel more confidence now moving forward? Do they feel like the dialogue now is really serious and sincere?
I can't speak for DEP. I can't speak for EPA in terms of their specific issues. All I can say is that MDC does not have the authority to do what they're asking us to do.
Okay.
And if DEP says fine, that's fine, or EPA says that's fine, or both of them, then that's an issue that's got to be dealt with by someone. But again, it happened. All of those issues happened on private property, not something the MDC had an authority or the right to do. And again, DEEP can settle those issues, and so can't EPA. Our regulations are established by them. We don't have a unilateral ability to make decisions with public money. Remember, it's not our money. It's the public's money, and we're regulated by someone else other
those
than
agencies.
us.
So those agencies have the authority and the power to make the changes. So a lot of the things that you talked about, I think were addressed, but the juxt of the meat of the letter, you already have the letter, so
Yeah.
you know. But for the audience that does not know the letter, I'll read the most salient point. One is that they would like for the separation of the storm and sewage pipes, the installation of the backwater valves to begin within 30 to 60 days. The other one is that the MDC contract and subcontract minority companies to perform such work. And the letter states that there's a violation of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which has strict penalties in terms of receiving federal monies and such. The Clean Water Act funding and any additional grant awarded to you by the federal government and the state of Connecticut. So for years, the sewage overflows and flooding in predominantly Black North End have been neglected, while maintenance of water systems in predominantly white communities have been your priority. So they asked for a decision to their request be sent to Bridget Prince, U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal, EPA Regional 1 Administrator David Cash. So you mentioned before we went on the air that I guess your attorneys are answering her question.
We've got to look at that, and I don't believe we've got the right to make that decision. That she says EPA and DEP could make that decision. It's their money. And the bottom line issue is, I take exception to the fact that MDC is doing it any place in which community or not. That was approved by DEP and established by DEP on how the Clean Water Project was going to be done, and also how the integrated plan, which that's become the integrated plan.
Mm-hmm.
The integrated plan now is going to deal more specifically with stormwater, flooding, and things of that nature. That's the reason why we switched from we asked to switch from the Clean Water Project to the integrated plan. And we don't have to go to a referendum. We can do that internally. We were given authority by the state legislature to use when we sell bonds and how we sell the bonds, because that's all controlled on how we sell bonds and who we sell bonds to,
Mm-hmm.
not by us, by the state, in terms of what we can do. Our charter is established by the state of Connecticut, not
Right.
by the 12 or the 8-member towns or by MDC.
Mm-hmm.
We do what we're told we can do in terms of our authority. So again, we're dealing with the legislature now on those questions, but it's not MDC. We've got the ability to do anything in terms of construction. I think if you look at our budget in the last 3 years, we haven't had any increases. We had no increases during the pandemic. We had no increase. We had a 1.3% increase in the MDC and in the last this year's 2022, we had no increase in it. We've reduced our organization went from 700 employees down to 400, and I think we're 467 now. We're doing more work. We've changed union rules where where you couldn't, if you're working on a water project, you couldn't work on a sewer project.
Mm-hmm.
We've changed those rules. MDC has done a dramatic. It's dramatic in terms of what we've done, in terms of and what we have the ability to do. Technology is significant. We just did we haven't done a management study in about 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
We did an internal management study where and last time you did this was 2005, okay, or 6. Can't remember what it was. What have we done from 2006 to present? And we're doing that now. Now that's taken, we've done a whole study on it, the technology we're using, how we're doing things, and we changed it. We are now going to have, we're going to ask for a public group to come out, because people say, well, that's your opinion. What our management studies are, we then bring in an expert from the outside, and look at what we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and say, does this make sense? As you've done all this, and so forth and so on. So we do that. We also provide to the state OPM, to the governor's office, to 8 different agencies, our budget every single year. We provide them with information. There's legislation in now that they're saying that they should have the state auditors come in. We have no problem with the state
Mm-hmm.
auditors
Yeah,
coming
that'd
in.
be 5888.
Yeah, let
Mm-hmm.
them pay. Let them pay for it, though. I don't
Mhm.
think the ratepayers should. And the other issue that they're claiming is that that should be done. That we should have an ethics ruling. We did. We adopted the same ethics requirements that are required by state. In fact, they're more stringent. That every commissioner has to disclose that he doesn't have a conflict, doesn't have a relationship with other commissioners in business. It's a rather lengthy document that we all had to sign January 1st, the first time it's gone into effect.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have no problem with people coming in and looking at those issues.
Mhm.
We're a public agency. We've been that way since 1929.
Well, Bill, you're just saying that there's no problem. So moving forward now, the residents, the community activists, the business owners, if they want to find out exactly where things are going at towards issues that they're dealing with, towards potential issues that could happen, who's responsible to address these issues or fix these issues, you're saying that the communication system now has been much more improved?
No, we have always disclosed exactly what we can do and what we can't do.
Mm.
Anybody can come into MDC. You can see it when we adopt our budgets and everything else. And what we're following, we follow certain standards in what we can do and what we can't do.
Mm.
That's never been changed. That exists. All I'm saying to you is, It exists in our function of government.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, it's not our money. We are the stewards of that money. We are the stewards of. We're the second largest landowner in the state of Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
We've got obligations for that, and anything we do is public information.
But the only thing I will say is that when the lady Sharon Lewis had issues at her home where she had to leave, I believe it was December the 4th, there was some type of extended time period before MDC actually went to this lady's home. So it wasn't like MDC went immediately to address or look at the issues that you are discussing.
We went, in my understanding, we went there when we were notified to go there. We did. We went into her house.
Well, you say when you were notified, but I thought it was like an extended period of time. So you weren't notified. I don't know if it was a couple of weeks or so, but it wasn't like this incident took place when it took place December the 4th, or I think it was the 4th, and MDC was notified when? I mean, was it what time span?
Again, I believe it. I can give you that. I can give you exactly everything we have. It gets taped. It comes in. Every call that comes into our location is a taped call. So they have it and they produced it to whomever asked for it.
Okay.
And again, I can't remember the specifics. I don't. You understand? I don't run.
You don't work.
I do not run the MDC. First of all, let's get that clear. The board determines policy. We do not operate. We don't hire. We don't fire. We don't do any of that. We direct what you can do in a budget, and we have policies that have to be followed, bylaws. We do not work there as and control anybody that works there. We don't. I don't supervise anybody. It's a policy board that makes decisions.
Right.
They're implemented by a chief executive officer, and we have a chief legal counsel that makes sure things are done legally. It's run as a major. It's a $210 or $205 million operation, and it controls reservoirs, it controls drinking water, it controls sewage, sewage plants. I mean, we're looking in the South Meadows right now. And this whole question of our community is the amount of discharge that we have. We're looking now, we have a technology committee that's looking at new technologies that will deal with eliminating all of the discharge we have in the South Meadows down to a small percentage of what's being discharged. We're under a mandate. We're using 1969 technology. Our people have stayed on top of it in terms of, but can we improve? It should be improved. There's technologies out there. We're in the United States, believe it or not, we're way behind Europe on this discharge into the environment. And we've got a technology committee right now that will be scanning the United States and wherever else to look at new technologies that we can deal with because of environmental changes, get rid of the carbon monoxide, the particulate matter, the NOx, the DOX. There's technology out there that can do this, and we're gonna that's what we're going after. So we want to be on the cutting edge, and we have been on the cutting edge of technology in what we're doing. And I think you can see going from 700 employees down to 476 or 67 is significant. That was over a period of 5 years. So we do that. It's you can come in and look at our budgets, see what we're doing. Our cooperation has gotten much better with the city and all of our towns. I mean, we had West Hartford. We had a problem with West Hartford. They have a combined system out there. They were technically using our sewer for their stormwater, and we're sending it all the way to Hartford and sending it through our plant. And let me tell you how significant this was. When we looked at the issue, on a dry day when there is absolutely no rain, West Hartford sends the MDC to South Meadows, sends 8 million gallons of waste. On a rainy day, they send 80 million gallons. that means they're putting their stormwater into our waste sewer all the way to Hartford and out into the river. So that's against the law. It's against federal, state, and MDC law. You cannot take and do that in a situation, because groundwater is the problem we have. The same problem we have with groundwater in the North Meadows, in the landfill. The state owns the landfill. They own the landfill. They took it over from the city of Hartford. Deep runs it. We've had an ongoing battle for 10 years now over that. And what they do is they dump 90,000 gallons a day into our sewer. A lot of it's hazardous because it's ammonia. And we haven't been able to get them to change that. The legislature's allowed us to sue the state over this issue, and we're trying to resolve it. That should not happen. But again, these are problems that we're working on and working it out. We just have so much control. We can't stop them from doing it unless, it's a major problem. That landfill. The other issue that is really is significant is PFAS. You've heard the PFAS issue. That what's happened is it's a compound that they can't break down. We can't break it down in our facilities. And this is one of the real reasons we're looking at new technology. We need something that can break it down. Well, we've got state-of-the-art America wastewater treatment. We can't break the PFAS down. PFAS goes into your drinking water. It comes out of your sludge. They use sludge in many states, not in Connecticut. They put it on the land and use it for fertilizer. Not for edibles, but for restoration of grass. Well,
but it still gets in the water.
The what it does is it goes, when it rains, it goes down into the ground and goes into aquifers. That goes into your drinking water. It doesn't go into our drinking water. Our drinking water all comes out of a reservoir. And now they're looking at it. All these wells in Connecticut and all over the country are loaded with PFAS, which is a major health problem in the state. We don't have that, fortunately, the way our water falls. But we do have it in our sludge that we're taking out. We're looking at new technologies that will eliminate that. Now, here's how significant it is. The federal government just increased the control over it. It used to be 10 parts per trillion. It was okay. Now it's gone under 2 parts per trillion. But they don't have a solution to how to get rid of it. These are issues that we're going to have to deal with. Hopefully, Hartford is in a better situation when it comes to that, because of the way our water falls into a reservoir, which is protected, and not landfills and things like that run into these things. So there are a whole lot of issues that we're still going to have to deal with.
Okay, well, Bill, obviously, there's a lot that you expressed this morning. I think you have a 10 o'clock appointment. I don't want to keep you late because we gave you some extended time. Usually we don't go there. And I appreciate
I've got a doctor's appointment at 11 o'clock.
But what we can do possibly, let's see how things happen. Let's see how things go moving forward. If there's still some dissatisfaction that Bridget Prince, the community activist, attorney, environmental attorney Cynthia Jennings have over the next few months, Sharon Lewis, then obviously I can invite CEO Scott Jellison as a follow-up, get his take. He runs the daily operations.
You've had Scott on before.
I've had Scott on before, yeah.
Scott's got more knowledge than anybody, at least at MDC, and can articulate it. He's been with us for, I think now, close to 14 years, not as chief executive officer, but he's moved up through the corporation. Came from the state of Connecticut. He worked for the Department of Public Works. And he's very knowledgeable. We're involved in all of the national associations that deal with wastewater treatment and clean water from the drinking side. And Scott, listen, he's much more knowledgeable in the day-to-day and the operation of the MDC than I am. That's his job,
Right.
not my job. But the policy board has a responsibility to know. We know everything that's going on. He articulates that at every meeting we have.
Okay.
So it's
Well, again, let's just be fair. Let's see how things go moving forward. If there's
Yeah.
going to be some dramatic changes, people feel better now. I mean, I don't think everything is going to get resolved just like that.
It's not going to get overnight. This is an
I
overnight
understand.
situation. Let's be fair. But if we're going in the right direction and everybody's talking, now we're going to have community meetings out with the NRZs, and we're going to build our position from the ground up with their participation,
Okay.
so that they know what it is and know what the rules are, and we're going to become more proactive. That's what's good about community. When we get this kind of community involvement, where we bring everybody in the same room, it's not, well, we're in a room today, but we don't know what DEEP. And DEEP, quite frankly, has been very supportive of this situation. They deal with rules themselves. They have to deal with the federal rules. And this whole issue of they've spent hours, I mean, to allow us to move from the Clean Water Project to what we think is a better deal, the integrated plan on a longer term. They took 3 years to approve it. And I'm not being critical of the 3 years. I'm saying that's how much scrutiny that the DEEP put into this. So it wasn't something that we sent them a piece of paper and they said, yeah, go ahead, switch over. We changed a whole series of things, and it took 3 years to do it. And people say, well, 3 years. Well, that's what it takes when you start dealing in a complicated situation that we have.
Okay.
So,
But those words are well taken, Bill. I mean, obviously, I appreciate you giving up your time this morning to come down to be an in-studio guest. You was very accurate, at least to my best of knowledge, towards all of the issues and questions that you wanted to discuss. And again, obviously, I'm going to wait and play it by ear, see what the feedback is from people in the community. And if for some reason I get some type of resistance that people are not buying into what you are saying, I'm going to invite CEO Scott Jellison of MDC on and let him do a follow-up.
well, I think you should definitely have Scott on it, because I am the first one to acknowledge that he's far more knowledgeable than I am on a day-to-day basis. That's his job.
Okay.
Not my job to do a day-to-day basis situation at the MDC,
Right.
nor any commissioner. I mean, again, we've got 29 people that spend an enormous amount of time in this project. And our committee meetings are open, and the public's invited, and we televise all of our board meetings. I think the last couple years now we've been televising them on. I don't know who does it, but they're there,
Right.
and they get disseminated to each one of the community that they can play this on their public messaging process to their constituents.
All right. Well, those words are well taken. I appreciate
Well,
that.
it's always a joy to be with you. Too.
Exactly. It's been a while since I've
I mean, to have Stan. I mean, in
Yeah.
the same room. I
Same
know.
room.
And this is what the second live.
Yeah. But
In-
I think he's the second person that's been in studio since the pandemic.
Since the pandemic.
Since we've started doing the morning talk.
But what's really good is you guys ask the right questions. You're fair in terms of the presentation. And again, we've got to work together.
We got to work together. I like that statement that you just said. Let's just try to work
I mean,
together.
when you call me, do I return your phone
You
calls?
always return my phone call. And you're open. We have long conversations.
Because if I don't, I'm going to get Stan calling me next.
Right.
Nah.
I don't know. Stan calls or not. I'll just follow up with an email.
When Stan calls me, I know I'm in trouble.
You're in trouble, right?
Well, I will say this though: it is good when, as the chairman mentioned, that when the community actually gets involved, I think it actually empowers everybody.
Absolutely.
Because it's hard to make an argument about what you need if no one's saying anything but you.
Right.
And government runs best when the constituent does their job. And complains or makes noise. If they're right, they're right. If they're wrong, then they can be corrected. But if people don't say anything, then it becomes mired down. And so, as the chairman mentions, for the first time, everyone's actually now sitting down in the same room, which was one of the big questions that one of the viewers had. But
I also appreciate you covering the second meeting, because I was able to share that. If people are not able to come to the meeting for whatever particular reason, they can watch the meeting. So you did a real good job videotaping and putting that whole meeting together. Relative in North Carolina, I'm sending her information about this to let people.
Well, I didn't put the meeting together.
But you covered the meeting. That's what I mean.
Just the cameraman.
Well, let's give Bridget Prince a lot of credit
too.
too.
You got the detail. You had the camera on it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we have to recall something and can't remember it.
Right. Well, that
was the good part of it. But again, it's an issue that. We got everybody under the same tent now, and we're all talking the same language, and now we've got to solve the problem.
That's the thing with you, like solving the problem. You don't want to keep talking about a problem. You want to at some point try to at least try to solve the problem. Not saying everything can be solved just like that, but at least show the effort and the sincerity that you're really.
And we'd also, in the future, talk about our technology committee, because it's very interesting that we're looking at. We got major problems on solid waste disposal.
Well, what about plasma?
What?
Plasma.
Plasma is something we're looking at.
Yeah.
Because to eliminate the discharges, the particulate matter, the carbon monoxide, you need intense heat. Plasma gets the heat up that you can deal with this, but also it creates byproducts like electricity, clean electricity. We spend at MDC $10 million a year on energy, and with it going up, the next jump will probably be up around $18 million. You see what's happening with the rates.
Yeah.
These are things that we can offset and save customers a lot of money and be efficient and clean up the environment on top of it.
All right.
Okay, I appreciate
that. We're officially out of time.
Out of time. Gave you the whole segment. It sounds like we didn't have no.
I'll tell you, when you're having fun.
When you're having fun, time goes by fast. Exactly.
Time flies. All right, my friends, our time together has come to an end, unfortunately, but we'll do it. We'll do it again real soon. So.
And Stan, I'd like to thank you, because you're a really community program. It really is effective to have this kind of dialogue.
Well, I try. That's all I can do. I try. If I can get a hamburger at the end of the week, I'm doing good.
Right. We'll give you credit, but like I say, this lady, community activist Bridget Prince, she really spearheaded the latest two meetings, or the second meeting for sure, and I think she needs to be commended. I mean, I gave her the invitation to come on the show. She was not interested for whatever reason. So I give Attorney Cynthia Jennings a lot of credit for filling in. And give you credit again for following up, as a man of your words, that you would come on the show and you came live in studio. So I appreciate that as well. And let's look forward to working together, as you just mentioned, and moving forward the best we can.
All right, my friends, we will see you all next time. You all have a blessed rest of your day, and enjoy a little Jay Hogarth as we go out.
All right. Okay.
Ciao, ciao.